I want to, from the onset, say a pleasant good morning to all of our citizens, residents, whether our citizens are here in the Federation or abroad, for joining us in this another episode of the Roundtable. As was explained, I use this opportunity to sit with the press and have a conversation on matters of national importance in a forum that is somewhat more relaxing so that we can get to the depth of the many, many issues. I also want to say that these opportunities really allow us to fulfill our mandate of being transparent, accessible, open, which is very critical at this juncture as we seek to strengthen our good governance platforms and to make sure that our people have access to the information. As I've always said, without our people, we are nothing, because at the end of the day, it is the people who determine who will serve them. Before we delve into the matters at hand, I wish to extend once again my sincere, but before I get to that, let me thank the media houses for being here. And I know you're from the Media Association, and I want to encourage the association to continue to grow from day to day, because you form part of the democratic process in terms of getting the information out to the people. And so I appreciate you taking time out and being here. But before we delve into the matters at hand, I wish to extend once again my sincere condolences to the family and loved ones of our late Governor General, Sir S.W. Tapley Seaton, GCMG, CVO, KC, JP, LLD. Yesterday, we had the state service honoring his legacy. Sir Tapley had a long and distinguished career. His legacy has been deeply etched into the rich history of our beloved Twin Island Federation. And of course, he would have had an impact regionally as well. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Today, I am going to share with you an overview of my recent time working abroad. As you know, each time that I travel overseas, I would come back and update the people as to the outcomes of those visits. I want our people to know that when we travel, we're actually working abroad. These visits, they do a lot to advance our country. They do a lot to make sure that our country remain among the nations, the leading nations of the world, give us a chance to dialogue, to build relationships, and all this helps in advancing our country, which is felt at the very kitchen table of our citizens and residents. And therefore, it is critical that we make a number of critical trips to move our country forward. I choose to do this so that people understand that these trips are not trips, unnecessary trips, and these trips are not trips to these trips are really geared to working and making sure that we fulfill the agenda. I traveled to Anguilla for the Ansa opening ceremony. That's the Anguilla Nevis St. Kitts Association reunion, a quick stop on my way to Brussels for the EU-CELAC summit. But I had committed to go to this meeting. This meeting I deemed to be a critical meeting, and I fulfilled my commitment. I have decided that I will return to Anguilla at some point. That was actually my first official visit there, my first visit in general. And for the time that I spent there, I was treated with a great deal of hospitality. It's a beautiful island, and I, of course, would return again. And as the residents there told me, make sure I come back for a longer stay the next time. And I told them I will. And what I recognize is that the people of Anguilla, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, that we are really still one people, irrespective of the political situation at this time. And I think the people connection, the family connection supersedes everything else. So according to the president of the association, that was the first time in almost 40 years of existence that all three island leaders were present at the event. And that, to me, that says a lot. I was there, Prime Minister St. Kitts and Nevis, the Premier of Nevis was there, and the Premier of Anguilla was there in Anguilla. And from history, they're saying that it's possibly the first time that all three of us would have been at the same table at the same time. So that tells us that we are definitely moving in the right direction and making sure that the family connections, the regional connections, and so forth are kept intact, are not only kept intact, but they are improved upon. So I look forward to the prospect of working closely with the Premier of Nevis, which we are for the betterment of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Premier Matt Brantley, also the Premier Dr. Ellis Webster, who is a medical doctor by training, and one who has extended a significant amount of support to me, even as the chairman of the OECS authority. And I want to thank Dr. Webster, for his continued support. And there is a lot of room for us to continue to grow as we seek to do what is in the best interest of all of our people. Immediately after following the ceremony, I had to then travel to Brussels, Belgium, for the European Union and the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States CELAC Summit. The EU-CELAC Summit brought together leaders from the European Union and the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States with the main objective to foster dialogue and cooperation on various regional and global issues, including climate action and finance, trade, security, citizenship, and human rights. And so after delivering my statement on the second day, which I had the opportunity to do, the President of the European Union Council expressed his satisfaction with our contribution, my contribution, and highlighted that that was the first time that our federation presented to the European Union, the first time. And I want to underscore that because this is very critical, especially for what I know will be questions as far as visa-free access and so forth are concerned that I think I might be asked later on. But it's the first time. This meeting was held about 8 years ago, and now the European Union, the Caribbean and Latin America, we are back together again. But I want to underscore how critical it was that I represent our federation at that most critical meeting, to the point where the President of the European Union Council really recognized our contribution and expressed his satisfaction with the contribution that we made to the whole process. For St. Kitts and Nevis, participating in the summit presented numerous benefits. Firstly, it provided an opportunity for our country to strengthen its diplomatic ties with both the EU and the Latin American and Caribbean region. Engaging with larger economies could open up doors for enhanced trade and investment opportunities, potentially boosting economic growth and diversification. The summit's discussions on climate change, climate action, climate finance, and environmental issues are particularly relevant to St. Kitts and Nevis, which faces the imminent threat of rising sea levels and extreme weather events such as drought, the very drought that we are dealing with right now, possibly the worst in our history. And we have been facing that for months now, which is affecting our water supply. We are already 40% less than last year, which was already a lower percentage than the year before. And this is due to climate change. And by aligning with the EU and CELAC's initiatives, our country can access support and resources to implement sustainable development projects and build resilience against climate-related challenges. Through our participation in the summit, I was able to address security concerns, including transnational crime and drug trafficking, by fostering closer cooperation with regional and international partners, which I've been doing over the past months. Such collaborations are crucial to maintaining peace and stability within our region. Our region has been declared a zone of peace by the European Union, which is, of course, critically important if persons are to look at the region as an area for investments and for tourism. There were also talks of the citizenship by investment programs within the Caribbean. 3 Caribbean leaders met with the EU commissioner responsible, Commissioner Johannes Hahn, and had discussion on the future of the programs with a goal to set up a working committee to address the issues so we can expect to see some progress in the near future. I want to say to our people on this matter, before I'm asked by the press, as the chairman of the OECS, I led that meeting with the commissioner. We, of course, the 3 prime ministers were there, myself, the Prime Minister of Dominica, and the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda. There are issues to work through, issues that I met there, that I've been working through since day one to preserve and to not only preserve, but to make sure that the name of St. Kitts and Nevis is properly restored. We have agreed to set up a working committee, and I want to say to our people that in the very near future, I would have to be traveling back and forth to Europe to make sure that we have a positive outcome. And I will do all that I can as the leader of this country to protect our country as much as possible, to cooperate with our partners in the EU, in Europe in general, so that we can have the most positive outcomes possible. Some of the things that we have done thus far has put us in a better light and has kept us on a good path thus far. However, more needs to be done, which I have committed to, which this administration has committed to. So I wanted to put that out there as well. I want to say that upon taking office, your government moved expeditiously to quickly address the issues we encountered in our CBI program. We implemented new SRNOs in short order, just like we opened up the country in short order. New SRNOs regarding the program to strengthen and to close gaps that has now received favorable reviews thus far. Due diligence undertaken has been extremely beneficial in safeguarding our programs, and we have strengthened that as well. We will continue to implement the necessary procedures and do the work required to strengthen and protect our country and to protect our people. We are going to continue on the path to ensure that we make all the necessary changes to build our CBI program for the betterment of our people. Overall, the EU-CELAC Summit 2023 offered St. Kitts and Nevis a platform to strengthen its international relations, addressing pressing challenges and seek opportunities for socio-economic development and environmental protection, as discussed previously. And so I really wanted to touch on those 2 matters concerning my travels and what took place at the EU-CELAC meeting, and to now give the press the opportunity. There are other issues, of course, to be discussed, but I'm pretty sure that in our discussion, those things would come out. And what does not come out, I will bring them to the fore. And so I want to thank you for allowing me those few minutes to make an opening statement and to now give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have.
Good morning, everyone. Shani Carby from Zadaza Broadcasting. Concerning the EU-CELAC Summit, in your address, you made mention of the development of the Sustainable Island State Agenda and the funding or access to funding being an important aspect of the development of that agenda. Now, the European Union announced pretty early that they will be committing to investing up to 45 billion euros by way of the Global Gateway Investment Agenda for Latin America and the Caribbean. So my question is, how will St. Kitts and Nevis be utilizing this investment? Are there any sectors that would be prioritized? And finally, are there any requirements to access these funds? Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. It is a heavy question, of course, and you have mentioned critical matters of the amount and so forth. So $45 billion across Latin America and the Caribbean in about 130 projects. I would say that we just got very good news that the French and France is now going to re-enter to support the CDB, that's the Caribbean Development Bank. Just last evening in our OECS chat, that was mentioned, our Caribbean leaders chat, that was mentioned. And so that would be one of the ways in which we will be able to access funding from the European Union or from Europe through these type of institutions. So that is one of the ways. What we are leading on here, and where we're going to put our priorities, we just had the presentation to the UN. I'm sure you all see it, the voluntary national report that was done by the Honorable Conway Maynard, the review that was done by the Honorable Conway Maynard. That was very critical. And that was the first time St. Kitts and Nevis ever presented that to the UN. First time in history. Just like the first time we have presented to the EU-CELAC. These are why these trips are important and so critical, because it allows us to seek to access funding to help us in establishing the sustainable island state. This funding will, of course, based on the sustainable island state model, which we will present to the country very short order, 1 or 2 weeks. But definitely, we're going to present it before the first anniversary, because we were taking the time to build out the sustainable island state model with the strategy, tactics, and everything else, resources, and where they're going to come from, the whole gamut of what is needed with respect to that. And we would have consulted locally, regionally, and internationally to make sure that it is well done and would be accepted. From the UN report, it is well accepted thus far in what we would have presented. That money would go towards establishing the sustainable island state. We have a number of pillars which we present in the sustainable island state. On the top of that is water, energy, technology, food security. We have recognized that to attain this, we have to make sure that these things are very much in place. We don't have access to water as we should in St. Kitts and Nevis. The infrastructure has not been developed over the last years how we should have. It stopped, and we have to admit that. In the last administration, in that 7 years, not one new well was drilled. We don't have access to water. Not one desalination plant was built. And so now we are in a drought, which is a result of climate change. And if we are to build resilience, we have to invest the monies where the money should be invested. And that we are seeking funding for water. Right now in Cayon, as you know, we are drilling. In less than a year, the government has started to drill in Cayon for water. We can access at least 500,000 gallons, which will end the water issue for Cayon, Keys, that whole area, and help St. Peter's, because there would not be any diversion of water from one area to the other. At the same time, we are expanding the plant at Marriott. This is where investments we need. This is where we need to put our money. Over at Marriott, where we have now expanded the desal plant. Right now, we are getting 150,000 gallons. We are now stepping up that to about 450,000 gallons, which will take care of the Southeast Peninsula. Everybody knows that Christophe Harbour has problems. We are now putting in a pump. They're going to pump water up to Timothy Hill, and that water will serve Christophe Harbour. We are changing out the piping system on the southeast, because the piping system is breaking down however often and preventing us from getting water there. You cannot have development over there unless you have access to water. That is how basic it is. Look at what the people in Cayon are going through. Look at what the people in St. Peter's are going through. And that is why we have moved expeditiously to start the drilling in Cayon. And not only that, we are now going to roll out a water storage tank system, which I'll explain later on. That is where we want to put our money. And we are going to build a new desal plant, which was approved in the last cabinet and was part of the post-cabinet briefing. A 2 million gallon desal plant. We are serious. People in St. Kitts should have access to water. And in less than a year, we have started drilling in Cayon. In less than a year, we are rolling out our storage tank. For those who have it worse, we're going to give them tanks, and at least we can fill them that can last days for them at a time. And thirdly, we have approved Marriott expansion of the desal plant. And fourthly, we are going to build a brand new desal plant that is already approved. And we have a caveat to that. What we want to do is set up for example, that in a water company and allow the shares to be sold to our people. So our people own it. So when you make profit from it, you can look forward to your dividend. We want to do that with a number of companies. Remember we said we want to build wealth for our people. We have National Bank. And I'm going to ask the National Bank to see how we can get shares. For example, a man in Keon, a woman in Monkey Hill, somebody over in Stone Fort should have some shares. When we do this with the water company, I want them to go and buy some shares for themselves and their children and their grandchildren. When we divest the shares from the cable company, I want our people to buy them. And we're going to set up a fourth company, which I'm going to talk about later on, that we want people to buy shares in it. Our people. I want to see our people buying the shares in these companies so that people can have passive income, so that even when you retire, you're getting a dividend from the water company. You're getting a dividend from the cable company. You're getting a dividend from National Bank. And the fourth company that we are going to set up, which I'll talk to later, is again giving our people the opportunity to buy shares. So can you imagine if you have shares in these companies and these companies grow over time and you're expecting your dividend once or twice yearly depending on the situation? That will bring passive income and help to build wealth for our people. So that is where we want our investment, in things basic as water, basic as renewable energy, which I'll speak to not at this press conference, but at the other one, so that we can build our sustainable island state. Because you can't have a sustainable island state without water and energy. Those are two basic, very, very basic things, and we are going to invest heavily in those. And of course, technology, which we are investing in. As a matter of fact, we are building out our fiber optic network. And St. Kitts, we want to be the first place to have fiber optic network in every place in St. Kitts and Nevis. No matter where you go, you should have access to high-speed internet. Everybody in St. Kitts should have access to that. And those are the things that are going to drive development. Why should I go to St. Kitts to invest? Well, they have water, energy, and internet, or technology. Those are the three things people look for. They have energy, they have water, and they have technology. That is why we are investing in the geothermal with the Nevis Island Administration, because we have $17 million from the CDB. If that geothermal is realized in the time that we think it should be, that energy is going to be low-cost energy for all of our residents, and also to attract businesses to St. Kitts and Nevis and to establish energy as a new sector. So that is why we have gotten the CDB to invest $17 million over there. And I can go on, because in PAC 2030, a forum that was done between, that was promoted by the Vice President of the United States, I was in Bahamas. I was one of the featured speakers at PAC 2030, presenting to them our geothermal and our sustainable island state concept that people in the region and internationally are gravitating towards. And I was given that opportunity. And therefore, those are the type of fora that we need to be in order to present our cases so that we can attract the necessary investment. As a matter of fact, the Atlantic Council has gotten so interested in it that they want to now divert resources to make sure that it is realized. Because if we get 1 gigawatt of power that can power St. Kitts, Nevis, and all the other countries around us, and we have a good chance of doing it. Again, that is where we want our investments to go. How are we going to resolve these issues and make our country a sustainable island state?
Good morning again, Kevin Brown, FM.
Yes.
Staying in the vein of foreign affairs and the CBI program, what's the government's position on Dominica being hit with the visa restrictions from the United Kingdom over their CBI program there? And what are the implications for countries in the region that have CBI programs, specifically St. Kitts and Nevis?
Right. Let me say from the onset that what has happened to Dominica, we in St. Kitts and Nevis, of course, Dominica is a fellow OECS country, a fellow CARICOM country, our neighbor, and we feel what they feel, and we feel what they're going through. Of course, this came because of what is perceived to be happening with their CBI program. And I think the Prime Minister has spoken, and he's moving now to make some quick changes, long-lasting changes in his response. And therefore, I want to congratulate him for dealing with the issue head-on and for moving expeditiously to make the necessary changes that he sees fit in order to progress and to get back Dominica to where it once was. with St. Kitts and Nevis, and I've said it openly, that the hardest thing for me when I got in, apart from opening up the country, was when I recognized that we were depending heavily on the CBI program. When I saw the budget of the previous year that was under the former administration and saw how our country was brought down to depending heavily on one sector, so heavily on a single sector, that was disheartening. Why? Because for many years, we had said that we have to diversify our economy. We had to diversify into different areas, whether it be manufacturing, agriculture, financial, tourism, and so forth, expanding these sectors so that we are not so heavily dependent on one sector. We had become, again, heavily dependent on a sector. Albeit that tourism was affected and so forth, the reason why I don't buy that excuse fully from the former administration is when I got there and I look at the scientific data and I recognize St. Kitts and Nevis could have been opened up long before. And that government administration kept the country locked down. It told me that they were not very interested in expanding the economy and diversifying. And that is why on the 7th of August, when I met with the task force, I asked them for the scientific data. I'm a medical doctor by training, and I'm trained to look at data as well. And I had been looking at the data and said that St. Kitts and Nevis was in a place to have opened up long before as a result of that. And I come into the CBI program and diversification of the economy. As a result of that, our economy grew the slowest in the OECS. Tourism did not rebound. As a matter of fact, there are countries that went above their previous tourism targets, because then when others could have moved in the American space and the European space, they just moved in great numbers. And so the other countries, the tourism went like this. Instead of going like this, we went like that. We increased, but it was not as steep as the other countries. And that has affected us, it's still affecting us, because our recovery was slower when it could have been much better, which means millions of dollars more for our people. So that is one of the things that I was disheartened for. Why we were not taking the opportunities to expand when we could have expanded and depend so heavily on just one sector. And in that case, it was the CBI. And I said that cannot be. That is why in the first budget we had, we reduced the percentage in terms of what we want CBI to contribute to the current budget. We said, no, we have to go on a path of cutting back, expanding new sectors, opening up the country. That is why we said new flights, we expanded tourism. That is why we went after regional flights into Caribbean. We went after Caribbean Airlines, which will have its inaugural flight on the 24th of this month. We'll have a ceremony this month, next week, I think. I can't remember the exact day, but it could be Tuesday, I think. Tuesday. That is why we went after JetBlue. And that is why we strengthened British Airways. That is why we strengthened other international flights coming out of the US and so forth. And we are going to continue to improve and increase the airlift into St. Kitts because we want to expand it. There's still a lot of room to expand. That is why you see us open up the port, and we are expecting the largest ship next year, January, in St. Kitts and Nevis. And I think based on the schedule now, we in the OECS are the only ones on the schedule that I saw 2 weeks ago. I don't know if it has changed, but at least St. Kitts and Nevis is on that schedule and is expected to have a large number of persons coming through the cruise and also increase airlift. So I'm talking about CBI and expansion of the economy. That is why we are going after the 2025 agenda with food security and agriculture. That is why we are pushing for geothermal. That is why we are pushing for solar energy, because we want to bring energy as a sector and to cut back on fossil fuel and the costs associated with that. That is why we want 24/7 water. That is why we want internet to chat in industries. If we don't do these things, we cannot expand the economy and we cannot create a sustainable island state. And that is where the CBI program, I think. But the CBI program has its role. It's a good program. But when I got in, as you can see, we changed the SRNOs because I understood what was taking place. And I said, we have to strengthen this program. Of everything that I did, I think this has been the most challenging to deal with. The most challenging to deal with. And I have not stopped. I know when the SRNOs was changed, I saw stuff to say that St. Kitts and Nevis approval for projects went down 90-something%. I was criticized for that. Remember, there was an international article speaking to that. But it's because I was, and the government and the administration, we were making the necessary changes to strengthen the program, to demonstrate to the international community that we were serious, that we would not allow anything to happen in the program that were not keeping with best practice and the standards that people expect. And those good moves were recognized. For example, you can see what happened with Canada. Canada now eased back and said, you know, when I spoke to the Prime Minister in Bahamas again, these trips are really working trips. Without these trips, these things cannot happen. I had the opportunity to sit and have lunch with the Prime Minister of Canada, and part of our discussion was about access to Canada. As I said, the Prime Minister is a very prudent man, highly intelligent, who puts his country first. And of course, he would have put his country first and recognized that there was nothing he would do to put his country at risk. But he also would have recognized that St. Kitts and Nevis has done a tremendous amount of work through the diplomatic means. And I want to thank those who had been working on it diplomatically over the time. But he also recognized that in terms of our program, that we had shifted to come into a safe space so that they can say St. Kitts and Nevis can be among the countries where we can start to open back up our access to them. That required a lot of work. At the present moment, we get a high number of approved visitors' visas to the United States of America. Our numbers are up. Because again, it is recognized that we are doing things in this space to protect ourselves and protect the international community. And now we are dealing with the CBI program as far as the UK and the EU are concerned. I led the delegation where the OECS met with the EU. We are writing to the EU. I'm meeting with the ambassador for the EU. I'm going to travel back to Brussels shortly. I am not going to stop. This is too critical a matter. More critical, I think, than people realize. But I think what happened to Dominica would have opened up people's eyes. And we would recognize why I'm so aggressive in making sure that the CBI program is tight and satisfy the standards of our international partners. I was accused of destroying the program. I said, I'm not destroying the program, I'm making the program better. Oh, the program was number one, it's now number something. All those things were leveled at me and us in the administration. Just recently, go back and look at the articles. Go back and look at them, just recently. But I think people, after they saw what happened with Dominica, I think people are now saying, so this is what the administration, this is what Dr. Drew has been doing. This is what the administration has been doing. This is what the team has been doing. So I appreciate that people can appreciate that with respect to the CBI program. So I will tell you that we are continuing to work hard diplomatically. This needs vigorous diplomatic approach, and we are doing that, and I am doing that, and I'm not going to stop, and I'm going to give the country the best opportunity. Since I got there, I am not making reactionary changes. I made proactive changes that I know in the short run would have affected the program. I can't say hurt. I would say affected the program, and I would have been criticized, and all manner of things would have been said. But I always knew in the long run that it was the best decisions to be made. And we are seeing why those tough decisions with respect to the CBI were made, why we had paused the program, why we told people to reapply, why we said that there would be no sort of shenanigans in this program. That is why we say we have to have strict due diligence. That is why we say we partner with our international partners, allow them to look at our programs, make suggestions to us, and let us move on making those suggestions, implementing those suggestions, and to keep the conversation open and going. We were very proactive. We did not wait until something happened. We just hit the ground running. Let's do what we have to do to strengthen this program. It is a good program. And to have the dialogue with our international partners. Because if we don't, what will be the consequence? And that we are doing, and I continue to do it, and I will continue to do it. At the end of the day, the record must show that I and the government and the administration, that we had the cojones to take the tough decisions to protect St. Kitts and Nevis and to protect our good name. Right? So I would say that it's not a nutshell, but I just wanted to be comprehensive with it. But that is where we are. Is there work to be done? A lot of work still to be done. But we were very proactive, and we created the framework to do it. So by Monday, Tuesday, you're going to see a new set of regulations come out. And we will circulate those regulations. Then I'll go back and meet with our partners. I would have to travel again, so I'm informing the country that I have to travel again, because my aim is to preserve our standing in the world and our good name. I will not relent. And so they will be released. So we are going to start to complete. So we did our first round, and now we are going to do the second round. All this was part of our strategy. We're going to do a second round, and then we're going to have the meetings again, update our partners, let them take a look at what we have done, and see what other changes we might have to make to satisfy whatever we have to satisfy. But that is where we are. Okay.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Glenn Bart, SK Newsline. Still on the CBI program, during the EU-CELAC summit, was there any specific areas of concern expressed to countries of the Caribbean who had CBI programs? What were the key concerns? And if changes are not made, what specific consequences are there? Because those are the two areas, I think, that remain unclear. And then secondly, with regards to Afrexim Bank, it has now been several months since we have signed that document. And can you give us an idea as to what specific actions have been taken since then, or what specific requirements still to be met in order for us to access funding for projects that we may have in the pipeline?
Right, thank you very much. I'll complete the piece on the CBI. Right, so we did meet with the EU. The EU had been communicating with us over time. When I got there was a document that I had sent requesting information, and I realized that it had not been responded to, and we needed to respond by September 15th. I then talked to the then head of the CIU, and we responded. They subsequently asked some further question, which we have answered. I communicated with the ambassador, and she forwarded that to the EU, so the EU also received that. So we are continuously having those conversations. Now, when I went there are of course concerns that they might have, that we needed to explain: issues of security, issues of abuse of the program, and the opportunity to be invited to be a citizen of the country. I wanted to make that clear. And therefore, if there are issues that are concerning them, we have put forward, so that we need to address those issues. I put forward in the document that went how we have strengthened the program, and they have seen that as well. The new head of the CIU, he has done that. The new head of the CIU has also met with his UK counterparts. The new head of the CIU, myself would have met with the partners as well at different levels. And we took strict measures in terms of how we do it to strengthen the program. and we'll continue to strengthen the program as a result of that. So I think security, abuse of the program, those were things that I know that they're concerned about. We show in our documentation when we send to them that our due diligence is strong, and where we think that there might be abuse, we are going to address those matters. And we came to the conclusion that we wanted to set up a working committee between the EU and the countries of the OECS. And so we are dispatching right away communication to the EU so that we can get to it as soon as possible. And I will be willing to fly back to Brussels to make sure that that is in place. At this point, where things are, I, as the chairman for the OECS, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, I would do what I have to do from my perspective to get it done. So I answer your two questions, the two main concerns that they have, and how we are setting up a framework with the EU to work through those matters. So I am on that. With respect to the UK had visited the CIU earlier this year, had spoken to the head of the CIU. He would have presented the information, asked what matters might be affecting and where we can make the necessary adjustments. We had made adjustments. We didn't have any serious issue with our program, and as far as the UK at the time had concerned, I asked him, make sure you stay in contact, any new issues, let's deal with it. And so our new set of changes that are coming, we hope would satisfy even more of those issues, so that our program is not seen as a program that people can abuse, and that it has the safeguards in it in terms of the due diligence, and so that our partners who can also be protected as much as we can. So those are two of the important issues, and we are setting up that framework to address them. One other thing, we had met with the Americans earlier this year. I think it might have been February and March, where we came up with a 6-point plan that you must have seen from the OECS in its communication, and we are basically completing all of those and going beyond those 6 to make sure that we strengthen it even more. So by Monday, Tuesday, you will see the new set of SRNOs out to make sure that we complete all of that. But we're not just going for what the 6-point plan says. We have what that plan says. We have done our own assessment as well and see areas where we need to strengthen. So we will go beyond those 6 points and put out there that St. Kitts and Nevis, this is our position at this time, and we continue to push forward. We are very concerned if there are those who might want to abuse the program, and we are very concerned if there might be security issues. We are going to tighten up wherever. So we're going to have constant review and make sure that we are constantly adjusting based on new developments, new situations, and so forth. So we are going to be aggressive. We started aggressive. We're going to continue aggressive, the aggressive approach to make sure that we do what we have to do. So I want to let our citizens know that that is what we are doing. Yeah, the Frexim Bank, thank you very much. I don't know if you know they're going to open up a branch in Barbados in short order. I think they sent me the date, but I didn't get to see the date. But I've been invited to the opening. As you know, we are pursuing, again, for our sustainable island state, we are pursuing energy project with them. We're also pursuing projects of food security in the area of marine resources, in the area of poultry, and so forth. So we are still ongoing those MOUs, and the technical teams are in contact. They're sharing information and so forth. Of course, to bring those heavy investment a few months is a short time, right? So the bank now is coming into the region because the bank had to set up its mechanism of how it's going to get the money to the various countries. So with a branch in the region, the resources in the region, we have already adjusted our laws. I went to Parliament, and we have already adjusted our laws to allow the Frexim Bank to operate in this space. So we have done our part in terms of the MOUs, setting the financial environment and the legal environment to allow them to operate, and having the technical committees meet to share the necessary information. And so we are moving steadily along. And so the opening is going to be very soon.
Morning again, Prime Minister, SKNIS. Reparatory justice for the transatlantic slave trade and slavery has been on the agenda for quite some time. I note that this was one of the discussions at the EU-CELAC summit and that in the declaration coming out of the summit, number 10, they have acknowledged and regretted the untold suffering. However, my question is, do you think that these European countries are putting their money where their mouth is, literally and figuratively? Because the way that we are and how our development is largely tied to that, and our underdevelopment is tied to their development. Do you think enough is being done? I noticed that they made mention of the CARICOM 10-point plan.
Yes.
So,
No, that's a very, very critical question. I want to thank you for it. First, let me congratulate the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, the Honorable Dr. Gonzalez, who did an excellent job as co-chair. It was very, very monumental, momentous, to have Dr. Gonzalez as the co-chair of CELAC EU. I don't know if you understand what that means. This is Europe, and this is Latin America and the Caribbean, put together, maybe the most powerful bloc in the world. And here it is, the Prime Minister of a small island state in the Caribbean is the co-chair. So I want to congratulate him for his position. And he really represented us well. And he brought the issue, of course, where the Caribbean is. I've spoken to reparatory justice. I've said to St. Kitts and Nevis, I've been in the space of reparatory justice since 2001. Ras Kolonji, I remember Ras Kolonji and I. There was a meeting about reparation, and only 4 of us were there. Myself, Ras Kolonji had come back from Cuba for vacation, Ras Kolonji and 2 other people. And then we had a little, sticker with reparations, and people want to know what we're talking about, And I had my sticker in my bedroom and so forth. I meant something, and I'm happy to see that it has become mainstream. That's what I would say. So it means a lot to me as well. If you read Walter Rodney, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, you would recognize, going to your point, Walter Rodney, we know, a scholar from Guyana, who was assassinated, who had done an excellent job in exposing how the exploitation of Africa led to its underdevelopment, and by extension affected the states of the Caribbean, which were slave states and so forth. And so that is there. Nobody can deny that. What is interesting here is that to have that even been acknowledged in a document is a great leap forward. So I look at it as the glass being half full instead of being half empty. We have at least gotten to the point where we see an apology for slavery. As you know, my position on that, I have not hidden my position. I have not hidden my position with respect to where I feel about that. So, have they gone far enough? Not as yet. But do I look at the glass being filled? At least the acknowledgement? I say yes. So we are heading in the right direction. The conversation must continue. The position must continue to be put forward. There must be tangible things coming out of this. One of the things is when you talk about the global gateway. One of the things is France coming back to the Caribbean Development Bank to see Guadeloupe, Martinique, Saint Martin, Saint Martin, to see that they now want to be associated with the OECS and CARICOM, want to be part of that Caribbean family, and they are pushing the argument that more needs to be invested from the European end into the Caribbean. We look at a monthly meeting with President Macron in Paris. They met in Paris. And there in Paris, it was quite interesting that the new head of the World Bank was also there. And they accepted the Bridgetown Initiative, which deals with financing, climate financing, to restructure the global financial architecture. Because under the present architecture, we cannot survive. For example, St. Kitts and Nevis cannot get a loan at concessionary rate because they say we are high income. We get one hurricane and all of that is wiped out. So how can we continue our development when we reach a certain way? You say, okay, you can't go any further because you can't continue to access funding. Hurting our development. This is the type of political consciousness that we need as a people. To understand where we are, so to understand where we are, as Bob Marley said, we have to know who we are and where we are in the struggle to understand what is it we need to do. Who we are, Caribbean people. Where are we in the struggle? We are underdeveloped. We can't get to develop because of legacy, but not only legacy, the financial architecture is so designed to, that is working against our development. And so we have to break it, and that is why I want to congratulate the Prime Minister of Barbados. And in my presentation to the EU, I said I support the Barbados initiative, the Bridgetown initiative, that St. Kitts and Nevis supports the Bridgetown initiative. And we are going to bring to the world the concept of the sustainable island state, which has in it an approach to help our small developing nations to develop and to grow. And therefore, I think that I want to say to the European Union that I appreciate them and congratulate them for recognizing slavery and apologizing for slavery. That is a start for the global gateway, for coming back to the CDB, for accepting the Bridgetown initiative, at least at the level of Paris. So we see some positive developments, and we have to keep working it to make sure that it continues to develop and grow to the point where we can have a real opportunity to develop and advance.
Just want to follow up on the matter of climate financing. Now, in the past, countries have come together at these various summits and conferences and made agreement with regards to climate financing. And in almost every situation, they have backed out at the last moment. Do you believe that there is any real serious commitment by these countries, who are the culprits of a lot of the climate damage that is taking place? Do you believe that there's any real commitment by these countries to really restructure the financing situation, which you just spoke about a short while ago? Or do you think that they will continue using the opportunity just to kick the ball further down the road as a way of delaying any commitment of their resources into this program?
Right. I will say this. There might have been some spirit of delay some time ago. But when you're in Europe and you're seeing temperatures that you never saw before in your life, I think you recognize this thing is real. In Brussels, somebody said they don't normally build houses with air conditioning. I think people up there are saying, boy, they wish they had some air conditioning now. I see on some house roofs, you know, the outside air conditioner that we have, that double system, piece in and piece out. I see some of that on some house roofs in Brussels. And they said they didn't need to because the temperature never dropped so low before. When you see that temperature moving across the US and Europe, I think that is having a tremendous impact. They are recognizing flood in one area, extreme heat in another, fires. They are recognizing these changes are affecting them. I think that there's a renewed sense that we have to act and act now. So I see that is happening. Is it happening fast enough? Is also a question. Have some funding been released? Yes. Is it to what we should do? No. Because as you say, you go to COP, you come back, you say you're going to raise this amount of money, maybe $100 million or more, well, no, billions, and you can't raise something a quarter of it. So you say, where's the real commitment? And that is a very good question that you're asking. But I think because people are really seeing the impact of climate change and their daily lives, that they are saying, look, this is real and something has to be done. The sad thing is, and I would say it here, our countries are more at risk. The temperature of the water is the highest it's been recorded ever. That means opportunities for stronger hurricanes. That means we are more likely to be hit by a Cat 5 at some point. And if we think our GDP is here, one Cat 5 pass over for a few hours and the GDP disappeared. Those are the real threat that we are facing in the Caribbean. And we do not have the financing to build the resilience. Imagine what I'm talking about when I talk about a smart hospital. I am trying to build a hospital that if we get hit by one of these catastrophic storms that are expected because of climate change, that if one thing that remains standing is a hospital. The resilience needs to be built across everything, all the houses, the infrastructure, the drainage system. They need to be changed to deal with the climate change. But do we have the financing? We don't have the financing. So we might have to just choose some specific vital institutions and determine, let's invest here first. Let's get water, let's get some energy, a hospital, and let's see what we can do from there. But as a small island developing state, with the financial architecture being what it is, with the climate change being what it is, and we're not being able to achieve the 1.5, we think we are going to surpass 1.5, it is obligatory that we will get hit by strong hurricanes. Will happen. It is just a matter of time. And we're just hoping that we would have braced ourselves. And that is why we say, unleash the money, give us an opportunity. We're not begging the money, but give us opportunity to concessionary loans so that we can invest at least to have some level of resilience if we are going to continue to exist as countries. If we don't get that money to build that resilience in this climate change that is taking place, it's going to be a rough place. It's going to be a very, very rough place. And so all of us have to start working together. We have to spread the message. I want the media to spread that message. We have no choice. There's no choice at this time. The politics go to a certain point, and then after that, we have to come together on some key important issues so that we can all have the opportunity to survive in the Caribbean as a region still. That is how critical it is at this particular time. We just need one good storm, which will happen because we are going to go above 1.5, and it just depends on who gets hit, or all of us can get hit. Because hurricanes are now hitting the lower islands, which never used to happen. I go on to Trinidad, they say they're flooding out, they never get so much rain. We up here can't get any rain when we're accustomed to have rain. We're dry. People can't get water. People are bawling out. And we are doing all that we can to quickly shift. But we can't get access to concessionary loans to help us to build a good desal plant, to help us to build our infrastructure and our houses. When we go to the market, you should see the interest rate that they're charging us. Can't afford that. And then our industries, how are we developing? These things are going to pose threats, of course, to people who want to invest. And so it is a very tough situation that we're in, but the hope that we have is that we have a plan. We can build a sustainable island state. We have what it takes to do it. We have our people who are resilient, and our people can do it. But I want to level with our people today. This is very, very critical, and we have to see, and what matters, we can come together as a people. Let's come together on water, energy, technology, attract new industries, build resilience. Then we can banter about the other things, but if everything becomes something of political discussion, and then there's some inertia, at some point we're going to wake up and say, wow, we really should have moved forward. But we have to move forward, and I'll continue to push to move forward. But you are right. They meet, they discuss, and you can't raise the money. But I think when people start to see the reality outside the doors and realize that you can fry an egg on the pavement, that you will say this thing is real and we really need to deal with it. So I think that people are waking up more and more every day as a result. Literally waking up because it's too hot to sleep, and waking up figuratively because, look, we have to deal with this issue. Otherwise, this can destroy us.
Good morning, Mr. PM, Ralston Rankin, Sugar City FM. There's a situation concerning the census workers regarding payment. Some persons were paid part of the money, and then part of the money they were owed, and some have not received any payment at all. And secondly, I have a lot of persons want to thank the government on the duty free on the back to school. A question is anything the government can do or implement, you know, to make the duty free on some of the items a yearly something, in case like pencils and books and those type of things. Those are things that parents would need frequently, because I don't know what these kids do with the books and stuff like that. And just another question, you know, you spoke on the climate change. Is the government considering creating an avenue for electric vehicles?
All right. On the matter of the census workers, Dr. Joy Clark, Honorable Dr. Joy Clark, who is the Minister for Sustainable Development, she had brought it to the cabinet. So she's working the matter through. That is why some people would have gotten paid. As you know, it was a pending issue from before, and she's working. There are some issues there to work through in terms of the amount, who gets the amount, the process of how that was done, and so forth. But nonetheless, we are determined to make sure that we comply with what we have to comply to. And then for more details, you can always ask her about it. But I understand that she's working through, her ministry is working through the issue. Right, so I'm not going to push that under the rug at all. We are dealing with it, and we have to deal with it head on, right? Now, on the matter of the duty free, that's something we can definitely look at and see how we can help parents more. We did the concessions on these things so that parents can have an ease in sending back their children to school. That's a very good point. That is something I think you have brought up, and it is something I think we should look at. So I'm going to ask that we look at it. That's a good point. So I accept your point on that one. And as far as the electric vehicles, yes, we spoke to the Minister of Energy, the Honorable Economist Maynard. He himself has an electric vehicle. So he said he's going to set the example, and he has done that. And so he wants to bring forward a plan for electric vehicles. So he has set the example. So when he comes to the country, he can say, I have an electric vehicle. It performs this way. It will work well in St. Kitts Nevis. And we are going to have a plan to encourage the purchasing of electric vehicles. So something is definitely coming forward in that. Yeah.
Just a quick follow up on that. So that means outlets will.
Right. Charging station. Well, based on him, he said you can have charging station, but he said that his vehicle can easily be charged at home. That is what he said to me. So it means, therefore, that people would have that option, that you can charge a vehicle at home overnight and drive all day. Because St. Kitts is small, and the distances are so short. One charge at night can work for the whole day. So I asked him what about setting up charging station. He said that can be considered, and I'll ask him to give more details on it at the next press conference, but he said he can easily charge at nights. And the reason why I'm talking about him is that I think he went about it the right way. He is testing himself. Look at how he's adjusted to it so he can bring that direct data to the country. So in talking to him, as we seek to put a plan forward for electric vehicles, he has gone ahead and done it, and he has seen very positive results thus far, and he is going to bring that, and we're going to bring the plan to have the electric vehicles. So we will determine then if the charging stations are necessary or not, because from his perspective, he easily charges at home. But what we want to do is that when we do the grid, that the grid has renewable energy in it. So when you go to charge, you'll get renewable energy. But apart from that, of course, when you drive, you wouldn't have those emissions as well. So I can also touch on the renewable part. But yes, he's coming forward with his plan. And then when you ask him about his vehicle, how it's working in St. Kitts, if he would encourage other people to do it, and so forth, right? Yes. Yes, you want to wrap up? I wanted to touch and just update them on a couple of things. Oh, no? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, at this point, we'll have the Media House representatives give the last round of questions before we conclude, and the Prime Minister will give his closing remarks after that period. Okay?
Prime Minister, on the matter of minimum wage, the minimum wage rate increase, which has been a hot button topic for the last few weeks, what are some contingencies being drafted to limit any negative impact the proposed wage rate increase will have on the economy? And what impact will that increase have on any of the social assistance programs and the people that qualify? Will the criteria change to reflect the change in wage rate?
Right, that's a very good question. As you know, we have been battling with the issue of increasing the minimum wage. We have put forward a committee that is made up of the stakeholders, and the Honorable Sam Conda had been leading on that committee with us. Of course, we have the chamber, we have the labor movement or workers organization, we had the government, Ministry of Finance, we had a position from the central bank and so forth. And so we are looking for the best, because for the last decade, there had not been an increase in the minimum wage. What, as I told you, the economy post-COVID, we are going slower because we opened late, not because, fundamentally because of that. And so some businesses are still in the recovery stage. And so the question asks, if you do it right now, how would it affect these businesses? And that is one of the questions. The other question is, would it affect inflation? Because as you know, you increase wage and inflation goes up. So you increase wage, and not because anybody's gouging, it's just a matter, it's a principle of economics. You increase a person's ability to purchase, at some point, it also affects the price point, correct? Because I guess everything works on supply and demand, right? So you have more purchasing power, you demand more. As you demand more, you increase the price and supply. So at which point is the best price point? But we want to get to the best wage for our people. And we had said that 500 per week is an area. And how we are going to build out that over time is what we are discussing. We have agreed already that there should be an immediate increase. Well, not immediate, but an increase around this time, which we are working on, and we're working to get the best, but it will not stop there. It will go until we get to where we want. But we are going to put a committee together. That committee will be a standing committee. That committee has to review the wage situation in Census and report to the cabinet on a regular basis. We're going to set up the frequency of that. But in the issue of minimum wage is also the cost of living. We have put together a committee to deal with the cost of living and inflation. And we have taken some positions to cut energy costs, so it wouldn't go into the cost of the end product. We have also done concessions, as he would have pointed out as well. We have capped the freight at 2019 levels, and we are looking at other measures that we might have to undertake as we monitor. So Consumer Affairs is at the table, Social Development, Ministry of Finance, the Cabinet Secretary is in charge. We are having a retreat tomorrow. That retreat is bringing that committee, on Sunday at 1 p.m. right here at COI to look at this. This is going to be a standing committee that always working to look at how our people in St. Kitts and Nevis, how are we living? Now the social assistance program, is $250 million per year, whether it's through subsidizing electricity, the PAP program, the Elevate program, the STEP program, the uniform program, the health assistance program, the burial assistance program. We have a lot of programs that are going on to protect our people. We subsidize healthcare significantly, which I don't even talk about a lot. We have helped a lot of children to go overseas to get life-saving surgeries. Those are expensive surgeries. We even have to bring in specialists to operate on children here. We had to open back up the eye clinic, hundreds of thousands of dollars for new equipment. US, I'm talking. We charge relatively low amounts for people to get eye surgery. And you heard a lady calling and said she couldn't see, and now she can see. Just scores of people who couldn't see can see now. We have bought new equipment for the operating room, anesthesiology. We have trained our EMT. We have trained our nurses in customer service, because one of the issues people were having at the hospital, they said, was customer service. So we have put them through a round of customer service. So we want to hear from the people if there's an improvement in the customer service from the nurses. And we're going to put them through a next round. And I want to thank the nurses for the hard work that they have been doing. So, so we are looking at the minimum wage, and that committee is working, and we are going to be prudent in how we introduce it. But our aim always is to get the best deal to our people, to make sure that when they get what they get, prices don't jump, and then it still limit their purchasing power. And then at the same time, to continuously make sure that their minimum wage is adjusted based on the conditions on the ground. We are limiting inflation by all of the measures we have taken. The government is losing millions in revenue to protect the people, but we still know that more work needs to be done. And in addition to that, we are still subsidizing up to $500 million a year to help the people. So we are really pushing to help the people. We have made college free for our people. The one-to-one laptop program is coming back, so all children can have access to technology. We are expanding our preschool program. In every sector you look at, we have invested significantly for people's advancement. Look at our elderly daycare program. The other day, the elderly, we took them over to Nevis. The other day, they went to movies because we want our elderly to have active lifestyle instead of just sitting home with nothing to do, getting depressed, pressure going up, sugar going up, and so forth. Yeah, because they don't have social lives. So we have invested. I say all of that to say that the minimum wage is taken into in the broader scope to deal with living standards. And so we are pushing forward. So on the minimum wage, the committee is going to meet again, and it continues to meet, and we want to have a rollout with everybody at the table and the data so that we can share it with our people, so our people can see that our decisions are prudent decisions as we work towards the best minimum wage that our people must have.
Prime Minister, permit me one more question. On the agenda for the EU-CELAC, I noticed that they discuss the Sargassum seaweed, the issue of Sargassum. Of course, you know, Caribbean people depend on the blue economy and tourism for their livelihood. Could you give us an update in terms of what came out of that discussion? Because they declared it a regional emergency, and they want to put it to the UNGA.
You are very correct. It's an emergency. I just want people to know that. The reason why we have the seaweed issue, as I call it sargassum, a scientific name, is because of the rising temperature of the sea. We have square miles of seaweed coming off South America, heading this way. Square miles. Some of these square miles are here might be bigger than countries. I was flying into St. Kitts, and when you look out, you just see miles of seaweed just heading to St. Kitts, which means it's going to affect fishing, the blue economy. Not only that, our beaches are an attraction to tourists. This is an emergency. And so this is part of the climate financing that we are asking, that this issue be looked at as such, and so that the money be placed there to deal with the issue. How can we deal with it? It's going to be challenging to deal with, but there must be a solution. I can't say the solution has been reached, but at least recognizing it as an emergency and using climate funding to deal with it is a start to help to deal with the matter. And so that is where we are at with it. But you're correct. This is it's like at this time we have so many factors affecting us. Post-COVID, climate change, El Nino, wars, inflation. I mean, pandemic. Pandemic has its own consequence, and then the effects of the pandemic is a different issue. It's like a whole plethora of issues at the same time. And while we're dealing with that, we're dealing with migration issues and our CBI program. So it's like a lot of issues. And the matters of security, international security, guns, drugs, just moving. Look at what happened in St. Vincent, St. Lucia. Look at what we have arise as well here. Look at Jamaica, Trinidad. The guns just, all of our islands, all of them, the guns just moving through and just wreaking havoc on all of our societies in the Caribbean. And therefore, we want to have a comprehensive approach in dealing with it. But again, you are correct. The sargassum is an emergency, and they have accepted as such, and we hope that the funding follows. What we are saying to them is that we are not looking for handout. The same access people have, just give us the same access. But as soon as you reach a certain level of development, they say you can't get a loan at a particular rate. Your loan now have to be 15% and 20%. You can't sustain that. So you hit there, then you're brought back down. Go again, brought back down. Go again, brought back down. At which point you're going to break the ceiling. And that's all we're asking for. A fair shot, like every other country, to break the ceiling and see sustained good development for all our countries here in the Caribbean.
Okay, my final questions. Regarding the reinstitution of the CET, when will that take place, and how do you envision this reducing the price of food? And finally, with sham marriages and the CBI program being under the microscope now, how robust are the other pathways to citizenship in the Federation? Thank you.
Right. Again, this is the CET. As you know, that tariff we are looking at. What we are saying here in the CARICOM is that this is not going to go on all foods. The CARICOM made a decision. We have signed on, right? The Treaty of Sargassum and so forth, and the revised treaty. What we are looking at here is we want to give Caribbean products a chance, just like any other region. So let's say you have a Caribbean neighbor producing a good supply of soap, let's say Dominica. Then the question is, why would you buy, you can buy soap from outside the region, but we are saying if it's produced within the community, those products should have that, that advantage to be, that advantage on the market. And if we do that, actually the cost of living can come down. But it's just that we are accustomed to a particular brand. Which type of milk you like? You like the Carnation, right? But the Bonnie costs maybe half as much. How we spell B-O-N-O-I? I think, or B-O-N-I, I'm not sure. But the Bonnie milk costs half as much, but our people have come to like Carnation, and they wouldn't shift automatically to a Bonnie milk. But there is milk that is available that is much cheaper than the Carnation milk. Same thing with the soap. You might say, I love, let's say, Dove from a particular area in the world. But you can get a very good soap from Dominica, but you might say, that is not my taste. My taste is a Dove. But if you were to buy that soap from Dominica, which has to pass a certain, which is of a good quality, because it has to be tested, and you were to buy, let's say, a Bonnie milk, and you were to buy a pasta from Trinidad, your cost of your grocery shopping can come down by maybe 30 to 50%. You should try it. Your cost can come down like that. You'll be surprised to know that you have products. So we are saying if in this space we have the same product, why, and at a much cheaper cost, why not give it an opportunity for the CARICOM to have increased trade and production and give our brands a chance? If we don't do that again, we're going to, but that needs a lot of consciousness and a lot of education so that our people can make those shifts which would benefit the region and in return benefit us because we'll be paying much less. I see our people here produce soap and all sorts of fancy stuff. What if they have a chance to produce that and sell that on the market in Jamaica or Trinidad or even further afield, but at least get a chance in the region? We can have industries being developed here because now instead of those people buying from outside, they can first give this petition product a chance. For example, Caribbean just got a special certification to sell externally. And as a result, the Caribbean is selling more beers outside or more products outside of St. Kitts than what we consume. Stuff like that. So we are saying that for CARICOM to have a real chance in feeding ourselves and supplying us with the needs that we need, that we have, we will have to look at giving our products a chance. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, because I'm sure when people go to the supermarket today, they'll quicker pick up a Dove soap if they can afford it than a soap from Dominica. But if you get the Dominican soap a chance, you might realize, boy, this soap can work, and it costs half as much. And therefore, instead of buying one soap, I could buy 3 soaps. I could buy 3 soaps, and that can make a difference. So I want to encourage our people to give the CARICOM brands a try. They are good products because they have to go through testing like anything else. They are generally much cheaper as a result, and they can help the family dollar go a little bit further. But we have not slapped on this, it's because we are conscious of our brand taste and so forth, and there has to be transition and so forth. But that is how it can bring down the cost of living, because we have a lot of products in the region that are much cheaper, of good quality, that can satisfy a lot of the basic needs that we have. But you're going to need a lot of education and new a new focus almost. Because we have gotten so accustomed to the brands from North America and so forth.
A final question, Mr. Prime Minister. In the context of the sustainable island state that you have spoken so much about over the past few months, how are you going to attack this, developing this standard within the country through the education and training process? Because to me, it seems to me that that has to be a core of the change that must occur if we are to achieve that.
Very, very, very correct. It cannot happen without the education. Formal education in school and other types of education. And so we have to start there, and we intend to start there. Let me tell you a couple of the things that we have done. For example, we want to get rid of plastic bags. If we get rid of plastic bags, they're going to help our environment here. But the other thing, they're going to save money, right? They're going to save you money because you have a bag and you repeat in your bag all the time. I don't think all the bags in the supermarket are free, right? So that is one of the ways. But what we have done is that we have introduced the No Plastic Bag Mondays. And we have gone to schools to try to introduce that concept. That is part of the education that needs to happen. Why are we doing this? Because we want to have a sustainable island state. The bad habit of having plastic bags everywhere is bad for the environment in many different ways that you can teach them. So we have started there. I launched a recycling program at the St. Peter's Primary School, the Dean Glassford Primary School, my alma mater, in St. Peter's with the Taiwanese and sustainable development. And we came there and we taught the children learned how to recycle. We also started a pilot program at my office, the Prime Minister's office, to get rid of, single-use plastic in terms of using plastic bottles and so forth. You see what you have here, bottle. You see, and you see the cups you have. Those are our efforts to tell them, look, we don't want any plastic. Whatever we do, we want to eliminate as much plastic. So we have started that education. That program was also launched, I think, in St. Paul's and another primary school, and we intend to do it in all the schools. So that is the type of education, you're right, that we want to start, practical education, have the bins there. If you come with a single-use plastic, your deposit is here, that one deposit there. And then we are doing the plant at the landfill so that we can, start to do that. So that is part of the education that we are having. Energy use, turn off your lights, water use. So we want to instill these in the children. You understand, you can't waste water, you can't waste energy. And we want you to bring that home to your parents. And then we want to bring that concept of sustainable island state to all sectors. So once we have the strategy now and we have the framework, and we're going to have town hall meetings, interactions with different groups, bring in the concept. The summation of sustainable island state is this: better living. If you want to know what we mean when we say sustainable island state, is better living. More energy, more water, cleaner environment, food security, resilience. Those are the things that we are looking for in developing the sustainable island state. And we want everybody to see that they play a fundamental part of it, but they also can see the tangible benefit. If developing a sustainable island state means that I can have renewable energy at low cost, who doesn't want that? If it means in Keon I can have water 24/7, who doesn't want that? If it means when I go to buy food, they're going to be at reasonable cost, who doesn't want that, right? Mean a cleaner environment so tourists can come and help to expand industry. If it means we have technology for all of our people, who doesn't want that? So we want to link, and you're so correct, the education, the formal education and the non-formal education, taking these concepts to our people. It is the only way, one way or the other. Because if we don't have a sustainability plan and project, anything you do will not make sense in the long run and can be very devastating. Sometimes you have to feel some pain in the short term in order for longevity, right? And that is what we want to get to. You cannot develop a sustainable island state without being productive. Our people have to be productive. And so we have to give them opportunities. We have to be innovative as well. How are we going to resolve the matters? We have to come up with solutions, local solutions also, of how we're going to resolve the matters. So this is going to be an undertaking. This is going to be generational. It is not going to go away. People will maybe call it different names at some point, but it can always be, whatever you develop has to be sustainable and has to be protecting the environment and building resilience. I don't care how you twist it or turn it. It's just that we have framed it as a sustainable island state and give a framework that is practical and give everybody an opportunity to participate in it.
Final question. How many social programs the government is funding and the overall costs? And what is the government doing to lower the costs? And quickly, could you give us an update as to the Nevis Island Administration concerning the premier? Because apparently there's a stuff going around that the premier is unhappy, with I'm guessing the fair share situation or so. Could you give us an update as to your situation with that? Yes.
The premier has spoken, and I saw what you're referring to, and I don't like to address fake news, because it's fake news. But since you bring it up and you're a reputable, a legitimate source, media source, I would say that is total rubbish. The premier has spoken and he has said openly that this is possibly the best relationship he has had with working with an administration. He has said that openly. He and I, we are to meet today. He and I, we were just in Anguilla together. First time people are remembering the three leaders coming together. Well, the Prime Minister for both, the Premier of Nevis, and the Premier of Anguilla. He has said openly. We have been open. Nevis has benefited significantly because I said to him, a child in St. Paul's St. Kitts should have the same opportunity as a child in St. Paul's Nevis. There shouldn't be any discrepancy. The policies we have introduced, they have helped Nevis as well. For example, the dividend payment, divisions have to benefit. The development bank, as far as student loans are concerned, divisions benefit. Free college in St. Kitts, divisions benefit. Even the program that I introduced with children from St. Kitts who are sick and need surgeries, we have helped children from Nevis. Divisions come over and they go to the hospital and they charge citizens price or cost, even though it is more from a St. Kitts Island standpoint, and Nevis as well have their own health system. They have benefited. The sharing arrangement, we did not touch it. As a matter of fact, we have improved the sharing arrangement wherever we might get other funding. The movement and the geothermal, I did not hesitate to sign off on that, even though it's over in Nevis, $17 million that I, as a Prime Minister, had to sign off on. No hesitation. So that we can see the realization of that in Nevis. And so I think the Premier has put forward his position, and I think he has said why he thinks so as well. And so you have people with these fake things going around that make no sense. How can they make sense? Because then they think that people don't understand the Constitution, so they can say these fake things. And so these fake things, I don't normally respond to them because you give them legs, but you ask, and I'm happy for the opportunity to clear that up. All right? So there is no issue there. And as a matter of fact, when was the time in history you saw Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition travel together? We went to Taiwan together because I'm saying to Taiwan, on either side of the aisle, we support this relationship. And I see a picture going around with the Taiwanese who are helping us at the government headquarters. The Taiwanese are our partners. We work together on different projects. They will offer their help in different areas. Come on. This is a partnership for almost 40 years now. So you're sending around this picture to create what? The Taiwanese are partnering with us also on the new hospital. They have partnered with us on so many projects in St. Kitts and Nevis. So many of our students go there to study. So this is a long-standing partnership. So I don't want us to go down the road with these people sending around these pictures that make no sense. But of course, if people send around wrong information, it's up to me as well to bring the right information. So I appreciate your question as well. And so we'll continue to strengthen our relationship. The leader of the opposition look at in Parliament. If we bring a bill, we have our differences, but there are bills where we say this doesn't make sense to just oppose for opposing sake. And you have seen the leader of the opposition brought forward his recommendations or his position. And in Parliament, part of the parliamentary process is where we go to committee. People didn't know that a committee really exists where you go in there and you discuss things and come up with a position. We really went into committee. For the first time, we're really going into committee to discuss the bill and say, okay, what is your point from the opposition? This is my position. Okay, the government look at it. You have a good position. The government can shift in this way to make it better. And out of committee, we say, coming out of committee, there was changes, and these were the changes, and this is what the new bill is going to look like. We have done that. I think this is possibly the best working relationship that the government side and the leader of the opposition would have had. It's an excellent relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis as well. Geothermal is demonstrating that. And we have opened up more opportunities for funding for Nevis as well. So I think that this the relationship is working well and working well for the people. For example, the Mango Fest. I went Mango Fest, and I tell the people come to Mango Fest. I don't know if they come because I call some of them, but then I heard Mango Fest had the most people they ever had, and it's 400 people went over on one of the speedboat business alone. That is how we're supposed to live. I see people catching a speedboat and go over to Sunshine for lunch and come back. People gone over Nevis to have a staycation, as they call it. That is how we're supposed to live. People from Nevis come over to study. I hope one time we can have people move over to Nevis to do the study, because there's a branch over there with a specific area to study. That even when I'm out of politics and the premier is gone, the relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis continue to grow strong. And Anguilla wants to be a part of that. Anguilla said, why can't we be a part of that? Let us all go strong together irrespective of the political past. How can we work together to strengthen all of our people? So I would say that, it's working much better than it used to work before, okay? With respect to the social programs, I can't tell you the exact number, but I think I've named a number of them. And I've named the big four. I've named the STEP program, the PAP program, the Elevate program, the electricity program. Right. Those are four big programs costing about $250 million. That is not taking into account the others that we have discussed thus far, and everything else that we subsidize. So the government is carrying a tremendous amount. And you have said, how are we going to cut the overall cost? One of the ways of cutting the overall cost, of course, is expanding the economy and growing the economy, giving opportunities to people so that people can earn more. And so we want to do that as well. And then that will help to lower the cost. So what we see can help tremendously here is economic expansion and diversification. That can help. One of the areas we are really pushing for is the orange economy. We see where Byron Messiah has reached, whether you like his music or not. But he, on the musical stage, he's doing well. Just recently, I sponsored some young people, my office, through the Orange Economy, through Ambassador of Infamous. And they went to Jamaica, and they're coming back with the music videos and so forth, that they have done excellent collaboration there. They're going to lift their status. Can you imagine if they can develop an orange economy, attract people into the country, and also provide employment for a whole set of, directors, studio owners, and so forth. That's a whole industry that we need to tap into. As a matter of fact, recently, I think it was Anthony B. who said that St. Kitts is getting it right, using music to grow the tourism economy, after he was here and saw an impressive music festival. So we are serious about the orange economy. Earlier this year, the reigning Calypso monarch went to Trinidad on workshops. I think she went with Banker Mass Camp, that I sponsored as well. Because when you have this talent, and you have to have people with talent come forward. Because I think to Jamaica was De Jour, Infamous De Jour, there was IMAC, and I think Chukapo. Yeah. Chukapo is a videographer, and then you had the others. Excellent. And they got that exposure. And they have done music and collaboration that you'll see soon. Very, very soon, I will say in a week or two. And so as they build out, they are going to generate jobs because they get bigger and they're in demand. They need a team, they need a crew, they need production, they need studio, they need on-stage dancers, they need a whole set of support that would create jobs. And we are looking at the film industry as well. We have not abandoned that. You know, MSI is here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have not abandoned that opportunity. And we want to create a film festival in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have a music festival. We want a film festival so that that can become mainstream. Come to St. Kitts for Film Festival. Come to St. Kitts for Music Festival. But this year, just to cap it off, we have CPL coming. We have CONCACAF coming. We'll have about 500 players here for about 3 weeks, filling up our hotels. Football for 3 weeks. And we have another program because we intend to make this summer period active and not be a dead period. And so we are working on that to create more opportunities. Agriculture, we're going to expand agriculture, create more jobs as well. Now, part of the thing I must mention is our project, capital projects. We are getting ready to roll them out now. They took us some time, I must say to the people. We have the St. Peter's Road, which is out for tender, the Bastia High School, which is out for tender, the funding for the hospital, the agreement, which we're going to finalize today, which is at least a $50 million project. We are doing about a $20 million project for roads in the communities. That's separate from the main road, that's separate from the hospital, separate from the school. Our housing program, which is to get kick off. So we have a number of serious capital projects to get started. Some people say we should have gotten it faster. Part of the issue is the procurement board and so forth and process that we have gone through, that we are now perfecting. And so you will see the economy play field as well. So you'll see a number of projects being rolled out over the next few weeks and to get the economy going in terms of infrastructural development. That is going to drive the economy as well. So we're going to have infrastructural development with tourism bouncing back and so forth, orange economy, agriculture and so forth, moving together at some point, because we are building the foundation to take us forward. There's been, I must admit, some delay in some areas, but it's because also we are putting the infrastructure in place to make sure that we get things right and make sure that it's sustainable, and it is going to be sustainable as well. So we're not going to cut our social programs immediately, but we're going to already started to expand our economy, and we really want to get the water issue dealt with, the energy issue dealt with, and the technology issue dealt with, because those can give us the best and help us to diversify away from just a single sector having, what I call significant influence, and that shouldn't be. We shouldn't be so vulnerable. So we want to build resilience through economic diversification as well. Okay?
This has been quite a fruitful discussion between the media houses and the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Honorable Dr. Terrance Drew. I will now ask for the Prime Minister to give any closing remarks before we wrap up our session.
Thank you. Just by way of information, just by the Ministry of Health, quickly, we started the customer service that we wrapped up that training, I think was last week, for the nurses especially, because people had been saying that we needed to improve the customer service. So Miss Adelcia Bradley King was the one who facilitated the customer service training of our nurses at the hospital. We also want to say that we also had training for our clerks at the hospital as well. Some people pronounce it clerks, and so they went through training and they have done well. They went to what you call a medical terminology course, and they were all excited and they did well. I want to congratulate them for that. We have also in the health sector, I spoke about the new equipment that we would have bought. We have the new, we have brought in the specialists and so forth. And what we have done with all of this in terms of the health sector, I think we want to create St. Kitts as possibly one of the safest places in the world to get pregnant and have a child. We want our mortality rate for pregnant women to come down. That's mean the death rate for women. I don't think we have had any deaths this year of any pregnant woman. No, exactly. It's normally big news when it happens, because we're a small society. And the reason for that is that we have 4 solid experienced gynecologists right now. I don't think we have ever had such a perfect situation. And in addition to that, we have a high-risk clinic at the hospital. So if you have a woman with pressure, sugar, and all these complicated pregnancy issues, they can go to a clinic specifically for that. And that is going to be geared at making sure that that woman, a pregnant woman, gets the best care. Also, we have brought down our infant mortality rate, because these children who we send away for these surgeries, normally the chances of dying would be high. These children would die. Oh, my child died, they had a heart problem. And so we take away the hit and miss. Once the child is sick and have a place to go, we will do it. I even spoke to the American embassy to allow us to access visa for sick children with the government's backing in the case where America might be the only place where they can get that surgery. And the ambassador said, there's a mechanism in place. You call the embassy, we facilitate that visa, get that child to the US quickly to get that care. These are things we have put in place. If the mothers were to speak and say how they have benefited, that might help, so that people can see that children are actually being saved, right? So we have put all of this in place. So we want St. Kitts. I think we can actually achieve that. I really think so. We can become one of the safest places on earth to get pregnant and have a child. So that is it. And this is sustainable, of course, because the gynecologists, 3 of them are from here, 1 is from Cuba. We just bought the Pediatric League to give extra training in neonate medical care. That's the World Pediatric League. First time ever in St. Kitts and Nevis. First time ever in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so I know healthcare had been an issue, and it continues to have some issues, but we have come a very long way. We have dropped the mortality. We have more specialists. And as a result of that, we are seeing the benefits of such. We have brought back some retired nurses to work in the A&E, so you don't have to have that long waiting time. The waiting time can improve more, but I know it has improved. We have the new dialysis, we have the dialysis machines that we got from Canada, and we hear people criticizing them. I just want to announce now that the training team from Canada is arriving. Here's a team of 5 to train our people into dialysis. I want to thank Leo Estridge, who is leading that. He already sent me the names, and we're going to facilitate them coming. We are now going to put our renal transplant program in place. I've spoken to Dr. Hakim. He's going to be here soon again for us to put our renal transplant program in place. Because there are too many young people with renal transplant, and if we leave them, their hope is going to be very small. And so we want to give them an opportunity to live. But of course, we are telling people at the same time we want to promote healthy living. So I just want to say that we are doing big things in health. That things that, and on top of that, so I just don't want people to think we're just going to build a new hospital. No. They're actually customer service training, specialist training, getting the number of specialists that we need and so forth to build towards what we call as an accredited hospital, so that all of the people can expect a good standard of at least basic care here in St. Kitts and Nevis. From the national security end, the new recruits to start training on the 24th of July, at least 30-something plus. We wanted to start this 17th, I think, but we shifted because some of them were going through their due diligence, because we are now having due diligence and polygraph testing as part of your requirement to become a police officer. So you just can't come into an exam now. You have to go through polygraph testing and all kind of testing to make sure we're getting the right people. So we're expecting about 30 plus recruits, most of whom are Kittitians. So we're happy to see the Kittitians coming back to be police officers. And what I'm told, they are well prepared academically and otherwise. And so it gives us a chance to train really good police officers. So they're going to start on the 24th of July. We have started, we put in place the canine unit between the police and the customs to be back in place. The collaboration with the U.S. security agencies, the DEA and the FBI, that is ongoing and strengthening as well. Efforts are being made to strengthen our borders, to stop the flow of guns. The commissioner spoke about what they will be doing at customs, for example. And then we talk about the boat that we received from the U.S., where our Coast Guard is receiving the training, a brand new boat. And in addition to that, we'll have onshore radar system to track anything that is coming into our waters I spoke to the ambassador of the US during the fiscal year between from October this year. So that is ongoing. We have just gotten 2 new crime scene vehicles. We have now updated the Elevate program to a sustainable program. We have the youth camps, and especially the police youth camp, where we have well over 150 children. We have the fire and rescue, which we have expanded, and this, of course, will be anti-crime and violence as well. And so, as you can see, we have some new advisors coming in as well to help us to map it out. We are strengthening the military, of course. We are bringing back the cadets. We are strengthening the explorers, and a whole set of things that are going to come under crime from a public health perspective. So we're going to include the whole of society to deal with our national security issue. But again, it has to be a sustainable plan. But we want our people to know that we are attacking this from all levels. It's not going to happen overnight. But we have the support we need, and we're going to invest the resources, because St. Kitts and Nevis, we are intended, has to become one of the safest places. We're going to work towards it as well. I just want to talk about some projects. The water project in Keon, they're drilling over there. You all should go over and see the equipment, take pictures of the equipment, show it to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis so that they can see what is taking place in Keon. It's tremendous. And once we have them here, we'll get them to just drill around the country. And I'm convinced that we'll find water all over. They have already mapped where the water is, and we just need to drill for it. They're going to then go back to Shadwell. There's a well there, and they're going to seek to fix it, because that can add hundreds of thousands of gallons to overall thing. We're intended, people should have water in St. Kitts 24/7, and people should have electricity 24/7, and people should have high-speed internet. If you're not providing those 3 things for your people, you're not going too far, because those are very basic things in terms of having a progressive, sustainable country right now. The road projects, St. Peter's Road, and we're going to do roads in the communities. The hospital that I spoke about, we are moving steady along. The Bastia High School, they have to do they're supposed to demolish it very soon. And Independence 40, which was recently launched. So I just wanted to bring those things forward and wrap it up by saying I want to thank you, the press and the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, for listening and being part of this round table today. We could have been doing something else. And so I want to continuously meet with you in different fora so that we can have these conversations. And we'll out some other types of approaches in terms of how we'll communicate with our people so that our people can have access to all of the information as we build out a transparent government system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, and thank you once again to the media houses for coming out for this special dialogue with the Prime Minister of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. A special thank you to Mr. Ralston Ranking of Sugar City FM, Ms. Shanique Harvey of ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation, Mr. Kevon Brown of WinFM, Mr. Glenn Bad of SKN Newsline, and of course, Mr. Lesroy Williams of SKNIS. We appreciate you coming out, and thank you once again for tuning in to the Round Table.